Islam.
Let us rise. Everybody's getting their fattage on right now. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night. And by day.
And by day.
His holy prophet.
Through a holy prophet.
Noble Jawali.
Noble Jawali.
Ashray. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors, ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitated speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your cards are for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the laws as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their cardin button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jawali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Jawali. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me in the movement now, by the same people of our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all of these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds, the ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Jawali. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam, this is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Jawali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on. But the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I Noble Jawali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace. Your divine prophet, Noble Jawali. Islam. Islam. So part of today we're gonna do as usual the Q&A, whatever questions anybody have. We also wanted to just quickly recap yesterday's session, because the amount of time that the Moors have been doing what they're doing near Ottawa, there's some momentum going there. You know, there was a mother there. She had her white fez on and everything yesterday. So the word is getting out. All that way. As well as we wanted to use yesterday as a challenge for the people who are in the jurisdiction and surrounding areas to look into getting some type of space wherever it is that you domicile, especially if it's not in this area. You know what I mean? You know, Brampton, Saga, Ajax, Oshawa, Kingston, whatever, and get a space so we can do some extended classes. Yeah, right. Extended classes. More, you know, it could be a Saturday or something like that. You know, just so we can spread out a little more in this area, because you know, as we know, you know, the temple is all we have where we can meet. But there are people in surrounding areas that going to them is also an option, because everywhere we are is where the temple is, right? So as much as we want to make sure that we're doing things relative to being at the base, we also want to, you know, step up our uplifting fallen humanity activities and start getting into different jurisdictions from Moors who are in those jurisdictions and setting up things for us to go there and do certain things, right? So, you know, as you could use the temple's nonprofit to get space at community centers or whatever like that. You either get some nonprofit rate, or you probably get the space for free if you're not doing something where there's, you know, charging at the door or whatever like that. So we do some type of information session. You know, get a space, let us know about the dates that you're working with, so we could work around getting some more things done. You know, and we're looking at that, you know, between, let's say, between spring and fall. You know, because we're also going to be doing, we're going to be continuing this year our Class in the Park series, right? This year we're going to try to get a few more of those in, where we get out of the building and do our classes in some type of city park or whatever. So there could be some.
Even down here to what? Again, kind of class where a lot of work.
Yeah.
What I say we should try and do is for those that are in the different regions. I think this year we're going to do Hyde Park, we'll do Christie Pits for sure. But maybe what we can do is we can get another 2 or 3 options for people in their area, wherever you're domiciled. If you see a nice space that, or you know, a compatible space where a number of us could sit and have a thing, then put in your submission. We go do a survey, see if it looks good, and then that can be one of the parks.
Right.
And that can be a way that we can be out in Brampton.
Yeah.
We can be out in thing too. So,
Yeah.
You know, one of like, you know, and I'll just say this, sort of like a park that you can, you know, they'll have benches, possibly area where a number of people can sort of sit. Anyone who's at Christie Pits, remember, there was area there. Hyde Park, I know there's an area there. So that's some of the, at least the, not the requirements, but the minimums that we need, right?
Yeah.
Just don't want an open field or something, right? You can get some place where you can get some picnic benches together, or sometimes they'll have natural theaters there.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they'll have like you know, overhangs with
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be the rental spots or whatever. You know what I mean? Just you know, majority of these parks, you can, everybody can find a little couch to do whatever it is that they need to do.
and anyone who was at Christie Pits last year,
Yeah.
that's sort of how that went.
Yeah.
You kind of get there early,
Yeah.
and get your spot.
Yeah. And we were there what 10? We were there what 10 or so? About 10? Yeah.
I think I was. Were you there?
Yeah, because I was there. Yeah, I was there when we parked at the top of the hill. Yeah. So and then something like that we would have. You know, we would do class at 12 or 11:30 or something like that.
Yeah, classroom at the same time.
Yeah.
We're just saying that it's gonna be done in the park. The offspring, I think there's a great energy with that. The offspring really had a good time. So we're looking to sort of when the ability to be outside is up there. Hopefully we can do anything that we're doing here out there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, just so that we can you know, get out the building. We did, like Omar said, we did it last year, but we didn't get to do as many as
So remember,
we
we
want.
want brickworks too.
Yeah.
Smoker, you there for the brickworks? Yeah. The
Yeah, were you there?
brickworks.
Wasn't
We did the brickworks last year too, remember? That was with Damien and
Wasn't it
Nicholas, and we were up on the hill, and Nora was there.
yeah.
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 Nora, remember we went to the back?
Yeah.
That was last year too, right?
Yeah. So yeah, so just things and if things come up, maybe you know, online or see a post of something that we maybe need to go to, you know what I mean, or something that we can attend as more as that, you know, things in the summer. You know what I mean? Bring up all those stuff so we can, you know, make
These are
ourselves.
some of the things that I've done some research when I was looking on my straw. I think we were talking about this right before, but the art gallery, I think is free for people under 25, or no, under something, some age. Art gallery or something is free, or raw museum, one of the two is free for children or something during a period of time.
You would go to the library and get free passes for the children.
Okay, maybe that's it, but there was also, I think, something happening at the art gallery where people under 12 or something, 13 got it paid. There was another place too, the observatory. I can't remember the name, but there was an observatory that I was working at where they have a program that's open to groups that sort of then, you know, say, hey, I'm bringing 10 children around this period of time. It might be a $5 each or something. They get them up on the telescope and all that kind of stuff. So those are certain things that we can start to look at. Maybe that could be sort of vis-a-vis the school a little bit more. But, I'm just wanting to get out. As it warms up. This building can be here for the winter.
Yeah. We could do,
Summer we should be.
yeah, we should be out as much as we can. You any other things on the calendar other than Montreal?
Things, just giving everyone the heads up, as I said, we have vernal equinox in March. We have we're looking probably to get down to Ottawa again for this music fest there. We might be looking to get down to Montreal in June. We have our barbecue in July. We have the In the Park series that will be going through the summer. So there's a lot of stuff. Oh, Hamilton. We're doing Hamilton in the next couple of weeks. Many of those guys are doing their thing. They're going to get a spot out there. And we're going out there.
Yeah.
This is what it is. And then just to let you know, the same thing going on in Ottawa. The challenge is on now for us to sort of take this into the second year. As we say, right? We talked about certain things that we're going to be doing, getting certain matters together and starting to sort of put this forth. So we're just letting you know that that's all. We're in retrograde right now. But, you know, the vernal equinox, our new year, right around the corner. So just those dates are there. July 4th is our on the island.
Sorry, what did you say about that?
July 4th.
July 4th.
On the island.
Yeah. July 4th. So before we start up, when somebody in the chat had asked a question about putting things on the record, right? Putting your status on the record and using the newspaper. So what usually what the perspective is that you get this information in you mentally, you do some type of proclamation, declaration, and then you start being who you're supposed to be. In certain jurisdictions, they have county recorder, and the county recorder in our jurisdiction
city clerk.
So we realized that when we tried to find the county reporter, you have to go outside of the city to get a county, first of all. And then a recorder is a whole different thing, right? When speaking to them, they said that once amalgamation happened, everything county got dissolved into the city. From law enforcement, things like garbage pickup that didn't exist. You would just get rid of your own garbage, right? Everything got dissolved into the county. So now into the city. So now the city has jurisdiction over recording of things. So things like you buy a house, you get a deed, and you got to do filing of something. The city recorder that's going to be dealing with it. If there's garbage, whatever, city, everything went from you being able to do it yourself to you being a ward and somebody's dealing with it for you. As we started realizing that these people aren't going to be recording, because once they record your documents of being national and all that stuff, now they're obligated to that. If they don't deal with it, then they have no obligation to it. They don't have to live according to the standard of international law, universal law, whatever like that. They can just deal with their city ordinance, their city, statutes, codes, whatever it is that they make up. So what Moors were doing, this is probably maybe like 2004, 2005 or so. Moors were saying, well, since the county's not going to let me record the documents, then we're going to put the documents in the newspaper and make it public that way. Because what would happen is that you go to the county, you file the paper, and then they'll give you back the paper that you filed with a file number. So now you can just reference the file number to anybody that you're dealing with if they challenge your status. Or you check the county record. County record has been filed since whatever. And then when they go check the county record, then they'll see that's filed, and they know that, okay, he's obviously right with what he's claiming. Without having to see a nationality card or without having to see you in a fez or whatever, you just give them this number. And they would go check the county recorder. But now there's no county recorder, now it's city recorder. There's some jurisdictions that still have county, but now that they're dealing city, Moore said, okay, well, we're going to go from county to just public, and then we're going to put newspaper. They started doing that. That was working. And then they shut that down by charging you now by the letter or something crazy in order to put something in the newspaper. So you can go to any newspaper and find out about putting an ad in the newspaper. 1 pages, full page, half page, whatever. 2004, 2005, you're looking at paperwork that was, more than the pages, the 6-7 pages that we got now. So you're talking about 20 pages or whatever. These people want you to pay something crazy in order to file it, which, again, them stopping the process of people being able to renounce the corporate status and get back into the de jure status. And then after the filing the paper thing went bunk, then they said, okay, well, then we're just going to send it out. We'll just make copies of the paperwork, send it out registered mail to whoever it is that needs to know about you correcting your status and you know, then that's how it's going to be made public, right? And then the issue that came up with that is that your paperwork is telling them, notice the principal is notice the agent, but when the agents or the principals get it, they're not notifying the agent or the principals. They take it, keep it over here, they get put in the garbage, they not reply to things or whatever, because every piece of activity that we do that gets our foot in the door means less of us needing them, which they don't want. They want to have control over everybody, right? Which is why the whole thing of you know, them pushing this black theme or whatever like that to keep us in the jurisdiction. So we never have the opportunity to get out of it, right? So in this day and age, from the expense perspective, it's not wise to do the recording in the newspaper, unless you're doing it in your own newspaper. You know what I mean? So like you can, but then, you know, the credibility of the paper is not going to be, you know, worth the filing. Because if we say we're going to put it in the Sun, Star, Globe and Mail or whatever, we know that that's going nationwide. If we make our own paper, that's local. Unless you're sending these papers now out to different jurisdictions in order for it to work. So the best way of the declaration and proclamation of who you are is you knowing that first and foremost, and then everything else that you do is just part of the process of putting on notice, right? Like Nord went to the highwayman and gave them to their hand to put them on notice. This is what I'm doing to let them know, because every time I send them something, they don't want to take it or whatever. So I'll go drop it off for you and see how that goes, right? Moors who say, forget paperwork, you're taking the card that I give you because that's my ID. I don't have anything else to show you. I'm telling you who it is that I am, or whatever. And again, depending on who it is that you're dealing with, will depend on the response that you get. But the bottom line is that these people know that as soon as we start exercising this you know, national position, they become less and less useful to us. And the more useful that we can be to ourselves, the less we need them, which is where we want to be, right? Right. So again, like if we're saying we need to proclaim who we are and the avenues that we would be using. Remember that all these things are years removed. So going to the county, like even though there's more that still do it today, but it was a fluid thing. Say late 90s, early 2000. It was a fluid thing. That's just what you do. You want to be a Moor, get your paperwork, go to the county, file it in the county. They're gonna stamp it, give you back your papers with a number on it, and then now you just go be a Moor. And it's not in, and you weren't having any issues, right? The only issue that came up was when they started presenting these documents that came stamped from the county, but it's something that shows the different jurisdictions. So like if you had a driving issue and you go to court and you put down your stuff from the county, their case is done because county supersedes city. Period. There's no ifs, ands, buts. Well, we gotta we'll get him out of here and all that stuff. No, this is filed in the county. County is what sets the jurisdiction in the whole thing of the state powers and all this, because everything is going to go through who has the superior claim. Foreigner that came from somewhere, or Aboriginal indigenous, oh, that paperwork says I've been rich. They got superior claim. That's it. There's nothing to argue. Whether it was states trying to shut down counties or cities trying to shut down counties, the county position in certain states got dissolved, and it became a city thing to handle now. And then that eliminated anybody being able to have something sealed or stamped or whatever from them, acknowledging the position that we're taking, right? So it's a thing that they did to make sure that we have a hard time making sure that our quote unquote status gets on the record, right? And then, then there's the other side of it where Moors got caught up in court and administrative building, and then they're thinking that when they have a situation and they go to court and they say, oh yeah, for the record, I am whatever, that they're putting it on the record. When that's an administrative building, it's not a court of record. So that it's not really on the record like that. And again, this is now say mid-2000, or so, where again, Moors who already did this, they already have their paperwork sealed, whatever, from the county. They can't go back and change it. Is what it is. There's Moors today that are still using paperwork that they've filed in the county, and they have no issues, even though county is dissolved. The whole concept of our status and the court aspect is really for them to know who it is that we are. That's not us going there to proclaim anything. Right? And that's not us saying we're going to use the court as the place where we're gonna file our things because we went there. We're actually just letting them know what our status is. So the process that people go through now with regard to the papers or putting your status on the record is that there's no record. You have to let them know. And you let them know by being what it is that your ancient foremothers and forefathers were. And not taking the position of, it has to be filed or it has to be whatever in order for whatever happened. Because more than likely, that individual that you're filing with or setting up whatever with is probably a foreigner, and they can't verify you. You have to verify yourself before they verify you. Right? Any comments or questions?
I just got something here on the counties and the jurisdiction of counties, and I'll just
Yeah.
Although some states have other systems and occasionally the terminology. Hold on, I guess I'll read it. State grants cities and counties the ability to administer government on the local level. The state's constitution and/or legislative code sets forth the powers of cities and counties organized under the laws of that state. For example, Article 15, Section 1 and 2 of the Constitution of the State of California direct the state legislature to prescribe the uniform procedure for the formation of cities and counties in that state. Under that directive, blah, blah, blah. Although some states have other systems and occasionally the terminology varies, most states recognize two kinds of charters: general law charters and home rule charters. Cities and counties that operate under the procedures set forth in the laws and constitution of their state have a general law charter. General law charters are created by and are consistent with state laws and state constitutions. Also, the cities and counties ability to write and adopt their own charter. These are home rule charters, state constitutions and laws specify the procedures. So I guess maybe that's just letting you know the background of where the counties derive their authority. Right?
There's a lot more. So they have their charter. in order to be who it is that they are, and then we have our charter to be who it is that we are. And then our charter actually comes from a sovereign power for real, while their charter comes from a sovereign in de facto possession of that power.
From an administrative or a bureaucratic
Yeah.
position.
That's good one. Sure.
I think it kind of connects to the prophets telling us that we have to have our own literature. And we always have our own newspapers and stuff like that. Because, you know, this whole deal about you're going to charge an absorption fee to put your information in the newspaper.
Yeah.
It's just a game, basically. You know what I mean? And our newspapers should be nationwide, you know.
Yeah.
Our newspapers should be international. And that way, you know, we trump them. They can't say, well, it's, you haven't given notice. We have given notice. And this paper covers everything. Well,
All right. Any other comments, questions in regard to that? So the black guys are mad because there was their concept of what's going on in the world is so warped that they keep missing things, right? They keep missing things. Last night there was this fight or whatever, Deontay Wilder versus somebody, and Tyson Fury fight. So Wilder got his ass beat. Right? He got beat, right? And there were some articles leading up to this thing that we just want to put out there so that you can see how they play the ritual with our people and how they keep missing stuff. Now they have let me just get this up for so while the Negro Black Coloreds are playing a race game or whatever, because that's the perspective that Wilder was going with for this fight, that, you know, this fight is in Black History Month and all that stuff, and, you know, for the 400 years of slavery, like, I'm gonna beat this guy's ass for all the black people or whatever like that, right? Got his ass beat, huh? Oh, he got ass beat last night, right? So there was you know, they do that little press conference stuff and whatever like that. They see, they even lied to you. You thought Black Panther was gonna do it, didn't you? Yeah. That 1 year makes a difference. Right, yeah, but right, so the other fighter, Tyson Fury, who's well, we'll read his article so you can know who he is or whatever, just see what's going on.
is the other guy Caucasian? Or
Yeah. Well, he's Caucasian in the sense of his appearance, right? But it doesn't really go like that, really, right? So Tyson Fury has said his fight against Deontay Wilder on Saturday is not a racial war, right? So this is the thing that they were pushing behind this thing, right? Fury challenges Wilder for the American World title, the WBC Championship at the MGM Grand Arena this weekend. But at Wednesday's press conference, Fury said, "I am not into all this racial thing with a black man versus a white man in Black History Month. I will refuse to get into any sort of thing about it. We are two human beings, two heavyweights at the top of our game. This is not a racial war. This is two heavyweight boxers going toe-to-toe for all the jewels in heavyweight boxing. Nothing more, nothing less."
He's still got some sense in him.
Fury appeared to be answering a question which had been directed to Wilder, who fought Fury to a disputed draw in 2018, having knocked him down twice but appeared to have been outboxed in many other rounds. Of course, we're beating it up, so the thing is playing games. The combat sports editor for Sport Sporting News asked Wilder if he was looking to create a big moment in Black history. Hale said, "In the first fight, you went viral. Now this is Black History Month. Are you looking to make a big moment in Black history come February 22nd? Hale's question is significant because if Wilder wins or draws, he would extend his WBC title reigning to 11 successful defenses, which is more than Muhammad Ali, who made 10 defenses of the WBA and WBC titles in 1974 to 1978. Ali, of course, is a cornerstone of Black history. He is a dedicated page on the Premier Boxing Champions website, celebrating him and his role in Black History Month for his athletic successes in the ring, inspirational political activism outside of it, and his public triumphs later in life despite being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease." To Hale, Wilder said, "They picked the wrong date, the wrong month for this fight to happen. And when I knock out the Gypsy Queen, we are gonna have a Black history trivia question spread all over the world."
Hold on, Wilder said, "I'm gonna knock out the Gypsy Queen."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, remember that's a lot of that too is all that propaganda and rhetoric. A lot of the times you're gonna know who's gonna win, but then the gambling dollar doesn't pay off unless you think that there's some sort of that's what gambling is all about. 50-50 chance.
That chance. I know for the intro thing or whatever, he had like on the big screen, he had all the Black History Month people that they show and all that stuff. He had Reed Ryman and all this.
So why do you have to pull them into their leaves?
That's what I'm saying, that it's a ritual that he played on himself. Right?
He just took down pot and all that stuff. He took all that stuff while he was just sitting there, ready to fake.
At the end?
In the beginning.
Oh, after yeah.
He has spirit stuff on it.
Yeah, I'm about to read that. I'm about to read that right now.
Took off the mask, his face was bleeding. Going crazy. They die right there. He's done from that point.
Wilder stuns fans by dressing as Sauron from Lord of the Rings.
I thought so.
to come into the thing.
A black mask and had like a black.
Yeah, a black crown type of thing on it with some red glowing eyes and all this type of stuff.
He only did that when he got in the ring now, then he lit up the eyes and whatever parts of the
Yeah.
and did on his way to the ring.
Yeah.
It took so long to get there, and he took out his stuff, you just see me dying. Well, you know, fight now, like you have to be cool and relax a little bit.
Yeah, say the suit was too much.
Already overheated. Like, mine went on and just.
And how are you gonna bring Tolkien in and then be like Black History Month for 9? There's so much stuff that doesn't make
Yeah,
any sense.
yeah. Right.
Other man came in with a robe and a cross. The Fury guy, he came in with a robe, red robe, and a gold crown.
Yeah, interesting.
Right. But it wasn't as covered as my boy.
Yeah, my boy was covered up. His entrance became the American champion. The American champion was compared to Sauron as he dressed from head to toe in a 31,000 pound shimmering black suit resembling body armor.
1,000 pounds?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying you couldn't fight. That's the weight of it or how much it costs?
That's how much it costs.
Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, pounds, yeah.
Driving
That's what that was.
No wonder he's tired. Not that pounds, English pounds.
Get the rest. So he paid £31,000 for this costume.
Yeah, the costume. Remember, this is the costume just to walk from the change room to the ring. That's it. The only time he's wearing it or whatever.
No, but like, I don't really watch much costumes, so I didn't expect that much. That even the Tyson Fury came out singing a whole song play. You have people carrying him because this thing is Spartan, so they'll be coming on. His boys are whoo, whoo. So then at a certain point on how he's being carried, like of that time, you know.
Right.
And there's a woman on each side carrying him or whatever, and then he gets to the ring, the song plays out. And then the other guy, Wilder, comes out and the same thing. Weird theatrics.
Yeah, definitely sounds it.
From the beginning, he didn't even really touch him a little bit, but the other guy was just the aggressor the whole time.
Was this boxing or wrestling?
Boxing.
You would swear.
Second round?
7.
Okay. Yeah, knocked him in the second round. If you recall.
He said he didn't knock him on second, but
How these teams work,
he took advantage of
it could pay you to lose.
Yeah, that too.
Paying to make a fool of
Happen all
yourself.
the time.
he got his box, right? I guess the first time they fought, the Fury guy just was more laid back and wasn't aggressive. This time he charged him almost every second. He had him backing up. I was always trying to throw punches and landed way more. Like power punches, the Fury guy threw 161 or something like that and landed like 58. Nice. The Wilder guy threw 51. He threw 51. This guy landed more than he threw. So yeah, he was done. His air was bleeding, his eardrum was bleeding. Plus his eardrum, his jaw was probably broken. They busted. I swollen up there from the guy. That was the first time I seen any of them fights. I was like, you're the one going with all this hype.
Yeah, yo. That's what I said when I watched the highlights this morning. What? Come Saturday night, one of the things that I made a promise to myself when I got to a certain point in my career, I want to give the boxing fans, I want to give the world something that they can remember me by. Not only just knockouts, but my expressing myself before coming out and entering into the ring. Along with the music, it's going to be a true tribute to a lot of the men and women that paved the way for us. This is Black History Month, and I'm going to be paying tribute to that. Now, you pay tribute to them losing?
No, that's the way it is.
Well, to his credit, they say like, no matter what happens during the fight, with him when he fights, there's always a chance for him to win because of his knockdown power.
Yeah.
He just has to catch the person with the right punch.
Right.
No matter what happens to him, he still wins. That's why he was 40.
47 and or something like that?
42.
42? Okay.
Got 29.
Yeah.
But he might have lost anyway, but he didn't. It's not like he got knocked down, but he didn't get knocked out. His corner threw in the towel. That's why the fight got stopped. He still wanted to fight.
Part of the
He was trying to
program.
fight still. He was mad that he threw in the towel.
Yeah.
Sets you up to fail.
Right.
But you're taking a bit of, you probably took some more punches. His ear was like profusely, bro. It was nonstop. His blood just flowing down his ear.
It's flowing from his ear only.
So that's probably why they started. I watched one fight, I read it,
Spear starter. And the ref not seeing it. His corner not seeing it. Only the spectator seeing that the guy is sick.
Yeah.
He's not throwing back no punch. He got up to go fight and and the ref pretending not seeing it.
That's all I love to see. As soon as you relax,
Yeah.
That's it.
So sometimes they know what they do.
And then the Fury guy was wearing him down. Because Wilder is 231
You know,
and Fury is 276.
it's like 6'7".
276. Wilder's 6'7", 36'9". So he was wearing him down. I was having a headlock, putting his weight on him. Trying to hug him. Give him a couple of cheap shots too. Yeah, I got those already.
Why is Tyson Fury called the Gypsy King? That's what is his nickname, Gypsy King. He's supposed to be European, Irish, or whatever.
He's representing Great Britain, but they were explaining it too. Like that has something to do with Ireland, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's crew of tough guys.
Mm. Yep.
You only get the title
If you're a tough guy.
you're extremely tough.
Yeah. Fury's nickname comes from his Irish traveler heritage on both his mother and father's side, which he was often spoken of during his career. In 2016, for example, the boxer declared, "I am a gypsy, and that's it. I will always be a gypsy. I'll never change that. I will always be fat and white, and that's it."
Original Gypsy Queen.
At 31 years old, is also the 31-year-old whose wife Paris shares his traveler heritage, is also more distantly related to two legendary bare knuckle boxers, Uriah Burton and Bartley Gorman, both of whom were dubbed King of Gypsies, which inspired Fury's moniker. In an interview with BBC in 2014, Fury explained how he considers his traveler heritage a key factor in him entering the sport. "Boxing is a key element of the traveling culture," he said. "Before anything else, you learn how to fight. Whereas in other cultures, little kids would kick a ball about, we're punching hands. When we have a dispute, we're not supposed to go to the police. We're supposed to take our shirts off, go outside and sort it out with fisticuffs. To be a good fighting man is one of the best things you can ever be in life." However, after becoming world champion, the Gypsy King also revealed to the broadcaster that he received increasing prejudice on his background. Fury said, "I get more abuse racially than I ever did before. I've done well and people don't like that. The quicker they can knock me off my perch, the better. I expected it because no one wants to see a gypsy do well. That doesn't bother me because it's what I do for a living. If I was German, Indian, or Chinese, I'd still be doing what I have to do to pay the bills. Wilder was stating that he's going to make himself the greatest African American boxer of all time after he wins this match.
Yeah, so yeah, before the match, I honored Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, and Tyson. Yeah, some medal, like some Mason.
Yeah. And then Tyson's Fury's dad named him after Mike Tyson. Which again is, you know, them jacking the energy. And then him with his trying to jack the energy of Lennox Lewis and bringing them up, give them stuff, whatever. That stuff didn't even work. Ritual didn't even work for him. Playing the music, coming out there, getting the costume and all that stuff. And Ritual didn't work. Man just came with his little crown, his little cape, and done the thing. And all the black guys are mad.
The song that he chose was like, it's a song that was just numb, like it's an old kind of
like the song that Fury told.
Yeah, like it's a song that you don't. Like, it's like, why are you choosing this song? Like, just relax and singing, like it's slow. You don't choose it, man. And then you know things on all the hype hip hop and they're pumping amp and stuff up and trying to relax. The song is trying to just put you to sleep, lull you to sleep.
Yeah.
And it's a song we all know too. It's one of those old, like Sweet Carolina type of song.
I guess he had it in the bag.
He had it in the bag.
Right, yeah. That's all they do. He barely hit him.
Yeah.
It's so funny, like, he barely hit him. I'm like, what kind of fight is this?
They told him not to do that. They told him not to do that.
It's funny, Fury told Louis, you know, I'm gonna be offensive the whole time. He did exactly what he said.
And then whatever tape they were watching, the other side, they probably never seen him do that. So there's no, we didn't plan for that. We planned for the same way he fought him before.
Yeah, Black Rituals got him.
The last one with this other guy. No man, the boxer man.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy beating all along and then the end.
Yeah.
And that's when you fight like that.
Yeah, but all those stuff is, you know, that's game realm now. You know, that's controlled realm.
Yeah.
That's not what, you know, Ali Foreman and Sugar Ray Leonard and all that stuff. That's not that right now.
Far from that.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's right now it's all everything's wrestling right now. Everything's wrestling. And then, you know, with people with the thing of, you know, you threw the fight, why you throw the fight Black History Month? Now's the time that you win something. You're a real sellout if you threw the fight in Black History Month. You know?
That's really and truly, we don't know. I
Who
remember
knows?
Dick Gregory in a YouTube video saying that it's all fixed. All your professional sports are fixed.
Yeah.
All fixed. Football, baseball, the whole 9 yards, they're fixed. So it really and truly, if he threw the fight for Black History Month, that's selling us big time.
Of course.
You know.
First time I realized that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Seattle since
The black guy won.
Where'd you go?
That's too deep for him, yo. They're not ready for that yet. They're not ready.
What more you want? Black guy what?
The black guy what?
Black guy. Really?
So I'm going to also put out for today the symbols. Read some of the symbols for the mothers in the house, so you can have a perspective of why Drew Ali was holding you on the cover and not us.
That was too heavy. 30,000 pounds.
I think that's done. Please, Lord. So this is from the Sibyls, the first prophetess of Mami Wata, the theft of African prophecy by the Catholic Church, by Mama Zogbe. In an ironic twist of historical events, in the formation of America's democracy, though the African themselves were enslaved, they employed this matriarchal African model of government as the perfect model for democracy when writing the Declaration of Independence. Okay. An ironic twist of historical events in the formation of America's democracy. Though the African themselves were enslaved, they employed this matriarchal African model of government as the perfect model of democracy when writing the Declaration of Independence. Their advanced style of government would be known in modern times as Lycian Confederacy. The Lycian Confederacy. And centuries later, in the New World, became the inspiration for Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison to praise them as an excellent Confederate republic. These African matriarchs were also the first to institute gold coinage and to build storefront shops, modeling after the Grand Lodge of Luxor, ancient Egypt's great library, later renamed Alexander. The matriarchs, too, had built one of the first libraries for development intellectuals and students of the mystery schools. Bachofen, the author, Bachofen tells us that they, the black matriarchs, bore with themselves the law pervading all matter. Justice speaks out of their mouths without self-conscious, and with certainty in the manner of conscience. They are wise by nature, prophetesses, proclaiming fate, Sibyl or Themis. Therefore, women were considered inviolable, bearers of jurisprudence and sources of prophecy.
Well, all the oracles apparently were all female.
Right? Yeah.
What? Which they actually symbolize the matrix.
Yeah.
They represent that matrix.
Right.
So matrix comes from.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It all comes back to the mind.
No one.
Right.
No matter how far you go.
Similarly, Diner states that everything in circulation among our European astrologists and other prophetesses under the name of the Egyptian dream book was copied from the work of Lycian priest Arte Nidoros. who worked out his interpretation of some 3,000 dreams in 5 volumes during the 2nd century BC. Additionally, there were more than 2,000 years. The Cariuni, Black Ionian inhabitants of ancient Thessaly, Thessaly meaning sea or moon people, is a mountainous region in central Greece. The prefix Kara was coined by the later invading Turks, meaning black, and the suffix Unani was added by the later invading Persians, meaning Ionian. Thessaly was a thriving center of Afro-esoteric learning, numerous holy temples, grand festive rituals, and rich culture. Right, so if Thessaly is a mountainous region in Greece and it's known as a thriving center of Afro-esoteric learning, then Greece wasn't some European spot, right? Centuries later, Thessaly too would be destroyed and re-owned, famed as the ancient location where the biblical Paul's proselyters were chased out and killed for insulting the African deities and attempting to force its inhabitant to accept an alien god and theology. See Theologians 1 and 2. It is here also where Paul first tested the now badly corrupted Euro-Christianized Sybil prophecies against her own people, knowing that they would obey her words. Thessaly, along with all of the surrounding Afro-Indian inhabited islands, were papal officials determined to discredit and destroy all vestiges of the true Afro-esoteric traditions of the Sybil prophecies from which they newly heavily borrowed, would later be branded by Paul and his proselytes as the notorious home of evil heathens, witches, talismans, and makers of love philters. During the Pharaonic era, the pharaohs selected their wives from amongst the Sybil clans, which was how they, pharaohs, could claim authority through divine descent. In the prophetic book of Kings, whose authorship is allegedly unknown, King Solomon, already a priest of the Mami divinity, Astarte, was later accused of marrying many other girls beside the Egyptian princess, who came from nations where idols were worshipped: Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from the Hittites. All of these historical locations were where the Sybils maintained major oracular Mami shrines. Important to note is that any ancient depiction of the ochre, colored wives of the pharaoh, was not a racial designation, but an ancient custom still practiced in present-day Togo and Benin. In this practice, an African who is of another clan is designated by a different hue, or the path of the deity from which they descend is esoterically denoted by the color characteristic. This ritual was not originally employed to denote race. For example, ochre usually symbolized mother blood, was often employed to designate the lineages of the ancient Canaanite matrilineal Sybs. Prophetic style of the Sybils. The Sybils' prophetic messages were heard during ritual ceremonies of ecstatic possessions, or they were magically induced through sacred herbal blends and other divinatory means. Oftentimes, they were fully focused as the deities manifested in their heads, while they or someone else wrote their utterances down on laurel or palm leaves. Several Greek and Roman historians recount how the Sybils' poetic utterances were written down by scribe priestesses as they lay thrown about the ground in ecstatic trance. Lewis tells us that they were mounted by the thunder god Apollo, whose spirit rode on the nape of their neck. Though Roman church revisionists favor the latter as being more pure, this is an arrogant distortion of the sacral spiritual mysteries of which they and the world have been privy. Oftentimes, it was in divination sessions within the confines of their own shrines, aided by scribes who would write down their utterances. All these methods are still in extent within temporary Yevi Mami, Wata Vodun, and other Afro-spiritual traditions. The divine African mother as Isis, Mami, Artemis, et al., the serpent divinity, would overtake them and begin to utter through them. Depending on the location and ancestral lineage, all of the above holy names were merely esoteric designations meaning wisdom, or I proceed from myself. Sometimes she, the divine spirit, would call herself Isis, sometimes Diana, sometimes Minerva, and sometimes Athena or Mami. Foreign affairs and miraculous cures. Augustus was not the only notable figure who sought the expert advice and divine wisdom of the Sibyls. He was merely following the age-old custom of African kings, military leaders, and entrepreneurs, village chiefs, and heads of state, who understood that if they wanted to be successful in their endeavors, it was prudent to seek the counsel of the local Sibyl priestess. Dorian, the Greek invader, recounts, when he, a Greek, first went up into the citadel, meaning to seize it, just as he was entering the sanctuary of the goddess, in order to question her, the priestess arose from her throne, before he had passed the doors, and said, "Stranger from Lacedaemon, depart hence, and presume not to enter the holy place. It is not lawful for a Dorian to set foot there." On another occasion, Aeneas, the Pelasgian Trojan war hero and initiate into the tradition of the Black Venus, reported his experience after visiting for a divination at the famous Sibyl cave of Apollo. He recounts that there is on this Enbom coast a vast cave cut out of the rock, into which opens 100 mouths, whence do proceed as many voices, which are the answers of the Sibyl. He came to the entrance when the prophetess said, "'Tis time to pray for revelation. The divinity is present." As she spake the words, at the very entrance, her countenance and color changed, and her hair was disordered. Her breast heaved, and her violent passion swelled her. She seemed bigger than ordinary, and her voice appeared to be different from that of mortals upon her immediate seizure of the divinity. The author assures us that Aeneas reportedly actually transpired. He further tells us that the entire coast of which is now called Italy was devoted to that African god and called Saturnia by the inhabitants. The Aenas and the Trojans came to Italy, all the Romans, and so do the Solomonites used in their sacrifices and festivals, and also the Sibylline and Pythic oracles and many other indications there are all of the same. Saturnalia was a major African and Tamil festive day to celebrate the safe journeys of the ancestors from the flood. Division in the Holy Empire, the patriarchal revolts. Historians of ancient Egypt, when describing Egypt's rise as a global military power, often assume an amicable joining of Upper and Lower Egypt under King Menes, hailing this event as the greatest political achievement in Egyptian history. This monumental event and claim began the golden age of military conquest and global expansion and the unchallenged rule of Egypt's patriarchal pharaohs, and according to most, it established Egypt's inviolable position as a legitimate world power. However, that is the view from history provided by the patriarchs. Upon closer examination and considering the historical evidence from the view of the matriarchs, indicates that this quote-unquote amicable joining might not have been such a crowning achievement in Egypt's history at all, but rather the opposite. In spite of Egypt's patriarchal military might, kings and pharaohs of Egypt still had to capitulate to the conquered and declining matriarchs, for whom they still must claim their divine blood and spiritual inheritance. This inescapable fact, as well as her exclusive sacerdotal authority and political influence in the world, generated much jealousy, envy, and resentment toward them. So much that it is alleged that 1,000 years later, as matriarchal rule gave way to new waves of patriarchal revolts, the powerful priesthoods of Aman in Kum and the clans of Horus boldly dared something never before imagined. They began invading and usurping the holy temples of these divine African mothers, starting in Thebes. They then invaded and usurped the major Sibyl temples in Libya and Ethiopia. As a consequence, many of these matriarchal clans fled to North and East Africa, taking refuge in remote, now Grecian island countries such as Iona. Many in Thebes fled to the Grecian Argos, or settled in the ancient African Matini kingdom's territories in Asia Minor. Many also fled to Mycenae, rebuilt their temples, all continuing their service to Mami Isis, known to them as Demeter, and established sacred African societies such as the Thesmorphians and the Scirophorians. Finally, hundreds, if not thousands of Sibyls and other priestesses opted against to commit suicide by jumping into the Nile River rather than submit to patriarchal authority. Those temples, priests of Aman, who revolted against them, slaughtered the ancestral python of the Sibyls, a deliberate act of divine warfare that centuries later, Wejbaja, the first king of Dahomey, is alleged to have committed in his takeover of sacerdotal power against the matriarchal clans in West Africa. After Amon's priests slaughtered the sacred python, they demanded that separate grand temples be built to Apollo and Zeus atop of them. These priests then proceeded to rearrange the cosmological pantheon, placing themselves at the head. A new patriarchal mythos was invented, and the sacerdotal doves were replaced with fiery angels of Horus. The Sibyls were then ordered to serve under Apollo and the thunder god Zeus, heading by male overseers. The priests then seized control over the Vestals, controlling all of their divine functions, especially that of prophecy and healing. According to Greek historian Pausania, the Sibyls would often express their contempt against patriarchal aggression in sacred songs and poetic verses. In one famous song recounting the historical truth about their genesis, Sibyl reminds these priests of her divine role in their very existence. For when the world was deluged in a flood of waters, one man of good repute alone was left in a wooden house, sailed over the waters with the beasts and the birds, in order that the world might be refilled. I was his son's bride, and was of his race, to whom the first things happened and the last were all made known, and thus from mine own mouth let all the truth things remain declared. His son's bride is an allegorical reference reminding the patriarchal masses that the divine kingship, of which they proudly claim their legitimacy, is still wrought through the blood of the African mother. However, these veracious proclamations fell on deaf ears, and over time the matriarchies lost enormous political, economic, and territorial ground. Centuries later, after the invention of Christianity, Bishop Eusebius, the so-called father of the church history, delighted in the decline of the most fiercest competitor, took advantage of this, advancing the Romans' papal agenda against African spiritual predominance in the world. He propagandized and attributed the gradual collapse of the African matriarchs to Christ, who exorcised all the demons, including the oracles. Although these unfortunate events began the decline of African matriarchal power, it did not remove them entirely from their seat of sacerdotal power. In spite of the patriarchal takeover of the temples, the deity to whom these sibyls were the mouthpiece was still Mami, who was worshipped under the many appellations of Isis, a title still meaning logos or wisdom, and the fire thunder spirit of the ancestral father Python, originally manifested by Horus, who became known under many names including Asclepius, Dionysus, Attis, Zeus, Apollo, etc. We are told that under the patriarchs, the nations had become completely corrupted. During prophetic pronouncements, the divine oracles of Mami, speaking through the sibyls, would always express their disapproval for their actions in her greetings to them. So that's the sibyls. I don't know if you have any thoughts on what we just read, the mothers.
It's deep.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when my grandma, obviously before she passed away, she was a Christian, and she gave me a Bible, and she said, read it every now and then. You know, and you know, I would sometimes. I haven't picked it up in a long, long time, but it's a good kind of reference to have, because you know, I don't think none of this stuff that we're studying can be studied in the vacuum.
No.
You got to look at all the different. In fact, in this reading that we just had, there was mention of some different Bible chapters, etc. But when you read them now, with this new knowledge that we've got here, it's going to give it a whole different flavor altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of what I ever read in the Bible was very patriarchal, you know. And that book is deep. I know you told me about it a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
Chief, and I know I gotta get it now.
Yeah.
You know.
Any other thoughts?
You said when Augustus went to go see the Oracle.
Mm.
I remember the movie with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, with Scorpion.
Mm.
The antagonist, every time he went to war, he spoke to the Oracle.
Yeah.
What time was the best time? Should I kill this guy? Not to kill him. Whatever. So, about every decision he makes, he has to.
Oh, and there's the Oracle and the Matrix as well.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
clearly, he's not the king. It's like she knows everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Clash of the Titans, where they had to kill Medusa or whatever, you know, and you know, Medusa being the head of the snakes, which is the same Pythoness, which is the same oracles, and
Yeah.
you know, I mean, where the power really lies is with women, because that's who the theme of the movie was them going to go get her head or whatever, bring her head back and all this.
But it's the same princess.
Yeah. We'll since wisdom is mother, we'll go through the chapter, the Holy Quran chapter, chapter 39, Holy Instructions from the Prophet, Pinnacle of Wisdom. Look, you got the small one there? Page 89, page 47 in your big Quran. Holy Instructions from the Prophet, Pinnacle of Wisdom. Oh, Fortune, you want to do some reading today? Here you go. Let's go get the the mother to put this one out.
For the pinnacle of wisdom,
Yep.
okay. As the eye of the morning to the lark, as the shade of the evening to the owl, as honey to the bee, or as the carcass to the vulture, even such is life unto the heart of man. Though bright, it dazzleth not.
Ooh, start over. Yeah, we gotta get you to read more often. Start over. Start over. Start over.
I'm sipping on my acronym.
Yo, I'm not reading ever again. I'm not reading ever again. The lark part?
I don't know, maybe the crack the vulture even such as is like.
There was some part there where it was just flowing, yo.
As the eye of the morning to the lark, as the shade of the evening to the owl, as honey to the bee, or as the carcass to the vulture, even such is life unto the heart of man. Though bright, it dazzleth not, though obscure, it pleaseth not, though sweet, it clotheth not, though corrupt, it forbiddeth not. Yet who is he that knoweth its true value? Learn to esteem as thou art. Then art thou near the pinnacle of wisdom. Think not with the fool that nothing is more valuable, nor believe when the pretended wise, that thou oughtest to condemn it. Love it not thyself, but for the good it may be up to others. Gold cannot buy it, for thee neither mines and diamonds purchase back the moment thou hast not now lost it. Employ the succeeding ones in virtue. Say not that it were best not to have been born, for if born, that it has been best to die early. Neither dare thou to ask of thy Creator, where has been the evil had I not existed? Good is thy power. The want of good is evil, and if thy question be just, lo, it condemneth thee. And if thy question be just, lo, it condemneth thee. Would the fish swallow the bait if he knew the hook were hidden therein? Would the lion enter the toils if he saw they were prepared for him? So neither were the soul to perish with his clay, neither would a merciful Father have created him. No, hence thou shalt live afterwards. As the bird enclosed in the cage before it deceived it, yet teareth not his flesh against its sides. So neither labor thou vainly to run the state thou art in, but know it is allotted thee, and be content with it. Though its ways are uneven, yet they are not all painful. Accommodate thyself to all. And where there is the least appearance of evil, suspect the greatest danger. When thy bed is straw, thou sleepest in security. When thou stretchest thyself on roses, beware of the thorns. A good death is better than an evil life. Strive, therefore, to live as long as thou oughtest, not as long as thou canst. While thy life is to others worth more than thy death, it is thy duty to preserve it. Complain not with the fool of the shortness of thy time. Remember with the days thy cares are shortened. Take from the period of thy life the useless part of it, and what remaineth? Take of the time of thine infancy. Take of the time of thy infancy, thy second infancy of age, thy sleep, thy thoughtless hours, thy days of sickness, and even as at the fullness of years, how few seasons hast truly numbered. He who gave thee life as a blessing shortened it to make it even more so. To what end would longer life have served thee? Wishest thou to have had an opportunity of more vices? As to the good, will not he who limited thy span be satisfied with the fruits of it? To what end, O child of sorrow, wouldst thou live longer? To breathe, to eat, to see the world? All this thou hast done already. Too frequent repetition. Is it not tiresome? Or is it not superfluous? Wouldst thou improve thy wisdom and thy virtue? Alas, what art thou to know? Or who is it that shall teach thee? Badly thou employest the little thou hast. Dare not, therefore, to complain that the more is not given thee. Repine not at thy want of knowledge. It must perish within the grave. Be honest here. Thou shalt be wise hereafter. Say not unto the crow, why numberest thou 7 times thy Lord? Or to the fawn, why art thy eyes to see my offspring and 100 generations? Are these to be compared with thee in the abuse of life? Are they riotous? Are they cruel? Are they ungrateful? Learn from them, rather, that innocence of manners are the paths of good old age. Knowest thou to employ life better than these? Then less of it may suffice thee. Man who dares enslave the world when he knows he can enjoy his tyranny but for a moment, what would he not aim at if he were immortal? Even have thou life, but thou regardest it not. Thou art not in want of it, O man, but thou art prodigal. Thou threwest it lightly away, as if thou hadst more than enough, and yet thou repinest. That is not gathered again unto thee. Know that it is not abundance which maketh rich, but economy. The wise continue to live from his first period. The fool is always beginning. Labor not against riches first, and think thou wilt afterwards enjoy them. He who neglecteth the present moment throweth away all that he hath. As the arrow passeth through the heart, while the warrior knew not that it was coming, so shall his life be taken away before he knoweth that he hath it. What then is life, that man should desire it? What breathing, that he should covet it? It is not the scene of delusion, a series of misadventures, a pursuit of evils linked on all sides together? In the sorrow, it is ignorance, pain is its middle, and its end is sorrow. As one wave pusheth another, till both are involved in that behind them, even so succeedeth evil to evil in the life of man. The greatest and the present swallow up the lesser in the past. Our terrors are real evils. Our expectations look forward into impossibilities. Fools, to dread as mortals, who to desire as if immortal. What part of life is it that we should wish to remain with us? Is it youth? Can we be in love with outrage, licentiousness? Is that right?
Licentiousness and temerity.
Licentiousness and temerity. Is it age? Then we are fond of infirmities. It is said gray hairs are revered, and length of days in honor. Virtue can add reverence to the bloom of youth, and without it, age plants more wrinkles in the soul than on the forehead. Is age repeated because it hated riot? Is age respected because it hated riot? What justice is in this when it is not age that despiseth pleasure, but pleasure that despiseth age? Be virtuous while thou art young, so shall thine age be honored.
Islam.
Islam.
These are 26. Anybody have any thoughts on anything other than what's on the board?
It's on the board.
Yes. Those are the verses that I was reading
Oh.
that stuck out to me or whatever. And then if any of yours are on the board too, you could just give your thought on those.
11 was one of my favorite verses in the whole Quran. So
11. Justice.
chapter 11, verse 11. A good death is better than an evil life. More or less the second part of it. A good death is better than an evil life. Strive therefore to live as long as thou oughtest, not as long as thou canst. While thy life is to others worth more than thy death, it is thy duty to preserve it. That line there. I've always, it's about, I was thinking about a lot of our so-called leaders and our martyrs.
The whole die young thing and all that.
Yeah. And their classic or transition could have sparked or possibly sparked a revolution or some type of change or activity or whatever. When they were here on the physical plane, they were more beneficial to the masses than physically doing it. And then some of them just put themselves in harm's way just because they feel it's their duty or they have to do the job, and sometimes it's unnecessary.
Yeah. Another one too is 10. When thy bed is straw, thou sleepeth in security. But when thou stretchest thyself on roads, beware of the thorns. Take from the period of thy life the useless parts, and what remaineth? Take from thy life, take off the time of thy infancy, thy second infancy of age, thy sleep, thy thoughtless hours, thy days of sickness, and even at thy fullness of years, how few seasons hast thou truly numbered? Any other verse stops?
25.
25. The wise continueth to live from his first period. The fool is always beginning. Yeah.
Something like that. So,
Which was that?
mention about the fools.
Verse 12 is in.
Well, complain not with the fool of thy shortness of thy time. Remember that with thy days the cares are shortened. Man who dares enslave the world, 23. Man who dares enslave the world when he knows he can enjoy his tyranny but for a moment, what would he not aim at if he was immortal?
Because we're already past that, point where large groups make those kind of plans. You see what I'm saying? We're already within that kind of.
I feel like a lot of that question is being answered now.
Yeah.
People transplanting and different things like
Yeah. Yeah. Man who dares enslave the world when he knows he can enjoy his tyranny but for a moment.
trying to get a 2 minutes out of it now.
Yeah.
Did we do 14?
14.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We'll go then. Take off the time of thine infancy, thy second infancy of age, thy sleep, thy thoughtless hours, thy days of sickness, and even at thy fullness of years, how few seasons hast thou truly numbered.
That's right. Carpe diem.
And then 14 could also go to the perspective of us coming into this information and the different things that we go through after we come into this. You know, the struggles, all the things that halt us from being Moorish. Have we really been exercising? Have we really been Moorish? If it's been a pain to, you know, just get our people to realize it, or to get a judge realize it, or whatever. You know, how much more time do we have to put in to really say that, yeah, we've been doing this, or we've been this? Number 6 is good. Say not that it were best not to have been born, or if born that it has been best to die early. Neither dare thou to ask of thy Creator, where has been the evil that I not existed? Good is thy power, the want of good is evil, and if thy question be just, lo, it condemneth thee. So like down if you do, down if you don't touch one. Yeah. Like also saying accepting that everything is a purpose or a reason for everything. So if it happened, it was meant to happen. If it didn't happen, it was meant to be that too. Yeah. So the line says, where has been the evil that I not existed? So it's also like saying how you would know. It's like the Adam and Eve story, kind of like, if I didn't bite the apple, would I have consciousness to know the difference between good or evil, or right or wrong? All right, so where has been the evil that I not existed? So you can look at it physically, like if you weren't manifested in the flesh, or if you never woken up or working your consciousness on that too. All right, if you never woke up, and now that we're seeing, now that we're Moors, we reclaimed our nationality and stuff, like the struggle's gotten harder. So more challenges, more obstacles, more counter energies are manifesting in front of our face now because of that. So I was saying, would I be facing all these trials and tribulations, and more these trials if I was still asleep? I think everything's perfect, or it is the way it's supposed to be. Somebody in the chat says 25. The wise continueth to live from his first period. The fool is always beginning. Yeah, and he's saying that's being related to the people who are chasing packages or whatever, or processes to be Moors. You know, the fool is always finding some new package to be a Moor.
Price only goes up. 30,000 pounds.
Some new Moorish doctrine or paradigm.
Yeah.
Jumping all over the place.
All over.
Once they get on the gold standard,
When you stay consistent with what the prophet left, you'll be fine.
Yeah. It's like somebody I spoke to in the week. They were talking about same thing, you know, they're talking about, yeah, we found out this way of proclaiming, Like, yo, you ever been to RV Bay Publications? Oh yeah, I was there before, but then, you know, I went to do some other stuff, and then But we're sending you right back there right now because you shouldn't have left. You should have stayed right there instead of going all over the
But
place.
then you gotta do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
See, it's free, but you gotta do it yourself, so I gotta pay somebody.
To do it for me.
That ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One brother was saying to me, so like nearly go downtown
Mm.
with $200 each to
Yeah.
get our
Name correction or whatever.
not a name correction. The national card.
Oh, to go check
Yeah,
some next month.
I turned to him and I said, "There's a store downtown." Who said what? He was like, "Yeah, man, you don't know that." I said, "You can come after you."
Yeah, let me know how it goes.
He's opening up franchises
Yeah.
with money like that. Huh? That's something that's great.
What 27:28. What then is life that man should desire it? What breathing that he should covet it? Is it not a scene of delusion, a series of misadventures, a pursuit of evils linked on all sides together? In the beginning, it is ignorance. Pain is in the middle, and its end is sorrow. As one wave pusheth evil to evil, in life of man, the greater and the present swallow up the lesser and the past. Our terrors are real evils. Our expectations look forward into impossibilities.
No, I saw like a lot of that. This is like on the YouTube last few months old at least. These people like.
Oh, and the sons, yeah, dressing them up like girls or whatever. Yeah, I know.
Two boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
It's an epidemic. It's a
And then
pandemic.
and Dwayne Wade tried to castrate his son and thing.
Huh?
You hear about that one? Dwayne Wade?
You what?
You want to castrate his son
Yeah.
because he wants to be a girl?
So that's why, because I'm hearing there's more outrage right now. I don't know why. I don't know why they're more mad at me. Like, my brother's like, yo, nothing to do with it. Like, telling Marty, like, yo, don't like him, man. Don't like him no more. If you like him before, don't like him no more.
Don't like him no more.
Who's that?
Dwayne Wade.
He moved his own content, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but the big
Or
thing
his son,
is,
because when his son one is gay.
that's just it. How is an 8-year-old going to be gay?
Yeah.
This is stuff that is being done to children with all these vaccines and whatnot. You come out and they're giving you 18 vaccines
Oh, no,
right
he's-
from the womb.
He's not gay. He's what did you say? What did Dwayne Wade say? Ever since he was young, he knew he was a girl or something like that.
But this is something that's
But
being.
he's a boy.
About his son?
And I just man in the nails, belly tops, and all types of madness, yeah. And then he's gonna let him get the snip.
Yeah.
Those
Keep
days, I know
sending your
these
children
people
for vaccines. The autism is on the rise, the
They're
transsexuality is on the rise,
trying
et cetera, et cetera, et
children
cetera.
that you're not supposed to be a mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's even more than that because it seems to be very pervasive nowadays, and you're just hearing about it left, right, and center. How come we never heard about autism when I was a child? There was no such word. There was no, what do you call it for the old people? Alzheimer's.
No.
There was none, those things didn't exist, and neither did transgender. But we didn't have as many vaccines then as they do
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Every generation, it's exponential. The vaccines are coming out of the woodwork. And this is stuff you're not supposed to be injecting your babies with, period. Oh, yeah, the food too, but I'm talking about these little babies telling me I'm a boy and a girl, and this is stuff that they're doing to them. And who's that Moorish scientist that's doing a whole lot of studies on this? I can't remember his name, but he's got YouTube videos out there that he talks about what's going on in our
And
environment.
Will Smith not the same thing for his boy.
Yeah.
Will Smith did the same thing for his boy.
Yeah. No, you were gonna
No,
say
I
something.
was saying, last night I was talking with somebody, I don't remember, and it's the same thing we had. Back home, as old as this old lady is sitting at her front porch, you can't pass and she don't know who passed.
Exactly.
Where does Alzheimer's come from?
It's modified.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
In the laboratory.
Yeah, it wasn't like that. No matter how these people old, you pass, they know who passed, they tell you what time to pass and know everything.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't say hi to me, eh?
Yeah.
Yes, you should have raised your boy better than that.
So the complaint to your mother is from
Your
the
mother pass and tell you to pass.
Tantrum on the brother.
Well, anywhere you go in the world where people are still
Everybody knows you.
Yeah.
eat natural food and drink good water and the air ain't polluted. But unfortunately, they're encroaching on everybody now.
Mhm.
It's only when the governments decide you can't do this to us. There's certain places in the world where you can't do it, you know? But everybody else is caving in and going around.
all this ism, the socialism, autism, racism.
Every ism.
They made them up.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because they never existed before.
No, and lately, they're just like bees, like ants, they just get enough.
And it's,
Yeah.
you know what, when they dig up the old bones and they go through and they do all kind of tests on these things, they realize these people never had cancer. They never
Yeah.
had cavities. They never had any of the things that we have
Yeah.
now. And it's only getting worse because it's not something natural.
It's
not
against nature,
organic.
yeah.
It's something that we're being manipulated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's terrible, and you know, people gotta wake up.
Like I said, you know, you got eyes to see, you can't see, and yes,
Thank you. You know, it's really sad though. You know, it's terribly sad. The baby don't have no choice. You know, they have no
Funny
choice.
Johnson and Johnson.
Oh, please.
Oh, you mean a man going?
Yeah. When you birth, the first product that came to your house is from Johnson.
Mhm.
Maybe once.
And everything they make is garbage. Everything is carcinogenic.
Every one of them.
I have the old lady that I look at going and I said, Johnson's baby. I said, you need to get rid of this stuff.
Mhm.
And she didn't know. I said, they even have a lawsuit. I was watching TV
Yes.
specifically for that one product,
Yeah.
baby powder.
For real,
How
huh?
you gonna get something for a baby that you know is killing? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's these people they're terrible.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Bill Gates is a big part of all of these.
Yeah.
And those are the people that, you know, people working on this and look up to.
Yeah.
So you know, you keep it like no.
The CIA, they push the drugs and they fought the drugs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, cause the problem, make the cure.
Yes, and then they come from there to be the president. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Same CIA people
Of course.
come be the president.
Oh, come on, they're all corrupt.
And they're the one that the president is.
Yeah.
Those people. Mhm. And they create sold arms to, you know, and sold arms to the allies and sold arms to the enemy.
A movie on Nicolas Cage, War of War. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah. Lord of War.
It's one of my favorite movies. He walks in the room because the guy, I know you got the rest of the friends, but honestly, it's like someone called at home. So like,
Mhm.
man, later someone calls him. He says this, it's too expensive for the US government to bring back all the arms, so what they'll do is they'll just sell it when they're out there.
That's right.
So it's like, in the movie, I think it's based on the true story.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like,
Yeah.
Saddam, cartels.
Yeah.
War machines, top 3 highest grossing commodities in the world.
Then you got your.
So, use,
Don't say coffee, but I know
they're
that's.
all affiliated.
Yeah.
So, to get the money to build the war machines,
Yeah.
get the oil,
Yeah.
get the drugs.
It's terrible. And drink coffee every day.
do some crap music, have some people dancing on their heads. And all those things.
And the people that own the music machine are also heavily invested in the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
They own them.
That's right, so it's like,
They own them. Almost every artist I know go to prison.
owns
That's one
yes,
which
Bob Marley.
and also one of the largest shares private prisons.
yeah.
And Interscope. Georgia, I mean, so also General Electric. And they gave that kids, the 17-year-old juvenile, a $6.5 million deal while he was still in juvie because he was promoting bad behavior. So that's how they advertise to prisons.
Yeah.
So they own gangster labels to get the young people to produce their behavior, to put them in prisons and slave them and break them up. Yeah, they make more money in prisons than they do rape out.
Food man, living man, clean up everything.
And they sell labor
Yeah.
to corporations,
Cheap,
the state camps.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Call center, you don't know who you call.
Yeah,
John
Yeah.
Winter.
I know.
But it's true.
yeah, and that's why America has the largest prison population in the world.
Yeah.
Over 1 million people
It's ridiculous. It's
And the
ridiculous.
most prison,
in the world. The largest prison
big
population
business.
in the United States. So they just put people, melanated people back in slavery.
Yeah. Chain gang and all that.
Sell people to produce foods, to produce clothing, to produce all types of stuff.
Yeah.
Construction.
And to keep the status quo, because if you have enough people out there who are indigenous and natural, you know, they're going to start governing themselves. So as long as you can keep them under control, get the radical ones into the most controlled facilities, that's what's being done.
And then you media, psychological, and mental manipulation. So young melanated men think that they're only this or they're only that.
Yeah.
And that's by design as well. Spike Lee was here last week.
I think last week sometime, yeah.
Yeah,
Somewhere last week.
and he was showcasing Bamboozle again, because Bamboozle is an old movie, but it talks about the industry of television utilizing Black people only as entertainment and clowns and worst of the worst. And that psychology perpetuates. So no heroes, right? And it was King Leopold II that said, take away all their heroes and put them in museums so we could profit off of their heroes. And give them no heroes so they don't feel that they want to be greater than anything. And that was by design from King Leopold, the longest running genocide in the history. It was Belgium, longest running genocide in the history of genocide, which nobody talks about. And
Thank you.
all that time. So that's real, that's reality. That's the stuff that unfortunately, when I started in publishing media, we needed to control media because the way we were branded. To this day, you look at how we're branded. There's no pride. Marcus Garvey talked about the importance of dress, holding your head up, stature. It's not. The media, you can tell the media wants are you to be the lowest, most derogatory. That's it. And that's what we represent this.
So that's what they do. And other people, everyone else follows them, but they do it with a different kind of a twist on it. Our young people are doing it because they think that's what they have to do.
I think that's their culture.
They think that's their culture. Well, in a way, it is culture because culture is something you cultivate, right? But other people come into it and imitate it and then move on. Or not, sorry, they come into it, they imitate it, they monetize it, and then they move on. But all we do is run around with our pants hanging off and our breasts hanging out. You know what I mean? It's really ridiculous. And all over the TV and the internet and everything else. So That's what they aspire to. They don't know anything about who they are or anything else. And this is the best you're gonna see.
Try to right? It's a deliberate design, and even Black History
It's deliberate.
is deliberate to focus on one thing, one small item. It's 400 years.
I know. Because we were humble.
401 years ago.
We was right there, our natural rebels, and we never got back. That's why they were able to control us for 400 over and over, back to Africa and bringing us in droves. Come on.
How come it never extends longer either? It's always 400 years.
Yo, no matter what.
That's almost
400 years before,
Like for 800, like with 400 years, 400 years.
Yeah, yeah.
it was 400 years before my number. And it's still 400.
yes.
So you know it's an illusion.
Any questions or comments before we close out?
So the one they want to book, the civils.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just
yeah. You can just pull it. You can just Google it. It'll come up. The Sibyls. The author is Mama Zogbe, Zogbe. The book cheap, but it's not even expensive. It's a good read though.
Yes.
We- yeah.
That boxer, you need to examine some Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, the real. Yeah, the real. Yeah, yeah.
He needs to know it.
Step up his gear.
Step up his game. Brothers are here. I know you brought somebody there. I don't know if brother has any questions or not. Or if you're all right. Peace. Peace, bro. Peace. Islam. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
I've always wanted to explain how much from being outside of this community, because the things that I've been told. I'm not actually okay, I'm just saying, I was a lot of fun. Where did I go and look?
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Just talking to everyone, cultures give me a lot of just pride and respect.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing that he's saying with the Leopold thing. You know what I mean? If they put us in a position where we don't know, and then we don't even want to go find out because there's no reference points for us to even be inspired to find out about certain things. You know what I mean? So, once you get to this place of knowing, and you get sprinkled a little bit, it's either gonna be too much, and you're gonna be like, forget this, you know what I mean? Thanks, Walter, or whatever, or you're gonna be headstrong now, and it's gonna be a different thing. Everywhere you look, you're gonna see the stuff around you that you're just gonna have to embrace what it is, because it's inescapable. You know what I mean? You can't. When your ancestors start talking to you, they're gonna talk until you listen. Yeah. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's a real. Huh? Yeah.
You know what you're looking for. You know, I'm getting this and I'll go ahead and do that.
Right. You always want more. Well, salam. We'll be here again next week. You have any update on Saturday? You want anything to put out there?
Everything's going great.
All right, proper.
You are coming for us.
Yeah, say that.
More you're coming. Sure to get our mind right.
So get it right ASAP.
Yeah, so I put up the next picture of it too, right?
Yeah. Oh, you got to thing yesterday? The print? Okay.
I didn't launch the program on my laptop. I just
Just put
program on
the.
it.
Okay.
I didn't open
Yeah. Okay. So everything's good now. All right. The Saturday we have Moorish Heritage and History School for Children every Saturday. Yeah. For what is it for?
Right now, for the next couple of weeks, it'll be from 4 to 8. Well, usually 2 to 8. We're trying to
That's our fourth week now.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had 10 students, so that was really great.
We only had 8 people here today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right?
Mama Mocha dropped by yesterday too. She stopped by, and I noticed something the week before, or the past couple of weeks. And it's like, I was telling her, it's like the universe. It's just weird to me, like how the universe is making it. Like the pattern is the same as far as with our meetings as the adults, how it's majority male.
Oh, yeah.
And I was bringing to her attention, like, it just so happens that all the parents who come here,
They're all boys.
most of
That's
them
where
are
the
boys
boys.
straight away.
Yeah.
So it's only one female in the class. Like when Sunny Rose gets her, should be second, and then I was asking Mom Mocha about her.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
she'll be there as well, and then Hope is there. So it's like 4. But I have like 20-something students on the list.
Mm.
And only like 4 or 5 are female.
Yeah.
Right, so it's like it's the same.
It's a cycle.
The
Yeah.
person knows that with this, it's the masculine energy right now that has to kind of bring it to the forefront.
Hold it
It's
down.
like a proper design.
Mm.
Because why wouldn't you, like, like knowing that it's a feminine energy movement, why is it that all the parents still have male children?
Yeah.
Mostly male children.
Yeah.
And there's more females on the planet.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
It is. Because it's just like to me, it should have just happened different. Like it should be all just like fair, female balance.
Yeah. Some type of balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The universe knows. Like,
Yeah.
maybe the next generation we could correct it and it'll be all female movement, you know what I mean? Or like majority females getting back to where they need to be or help us to get where we need to be. But I don't think maybe it's not the numbers either, it's just the energy, right?
Right.
The fuse that come with the energy. One could be 100.
Islam. All right, more is Islam. Peace and love to all. Some to all the chat Moors and the online Moors and whoever else out there. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe. Father of love. Truth. Peace. Freedom. And justice. Allah, my protector. My guide. And my salvation. By night. And by day. His holy prophet. Noble Jali. Islam. Ashe. Islam. Peace, Moors. Oh, the book. Sorry, I just seen your message.
People are
There's the book.
Y'all put your stuff down here? Okay, good, because, you know.
Yeah, all right. Right, so just to let you know,
Peace and love, Moors, Islam.
so it's important, but at that time, you really want to go applause. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, you know, you can maybe read every 10 pages and see what. It's around. It's where they start, it's